Captain Hansal walked slowly across the main bridge of the UES Titan Edge. His black military boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he looked out at the massive view screen. The stars looked tiny and far away, but he knew they were heading toward one of them. The ship around him was so big that it took 20 minutes to walk from one end to the other. This was not just any ship, this was the biggest warship that humans had ever built. It was 15 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. The metal hull was dark gray and covered with weapons that could destroy entire cities. The ship had taken 3 years to build and cost more money than most planets made in a century. Hansal stopped at his captain chair and looked around the bridge. 50 other people worked at their stations. Their fingers moved quickly over glowing screens and buttons. The bridge was the size of a football field, and the ceiling was so high that it disappeared into shadows. Everything here was built to control the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created. Commander Sojin stood at the weapons station. Her short black hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, and her brown eyes watched the displays carefully. She was responsible for all the guns and missiles on the ship. There were thousands of them hidden in the hull, ready to fire at any enemy. The weapons could turn asteroids into dust and crack the surface of planets. On the other side of the bridge, engineer Wu Bin worked at his station. His hands moved over the controls that managed the ship's massive engines. The fusion drives were each the size of a building, and when they fired they could push the ship faster than anything humans had ever built. The engines made the ship shake slightly when they worked at full power. Navigation Officer Haijin sat at her station with star charts floating in the air around her. She was planning their path through space to the Proxima Centauri system. Her long fingers pointed at different stars and planets as she calculated the best route. The journey would take 6 months even with their powerful engine. Hansal pressed a button on his chair and his voice echoed through the entire ship. All 50,000 crew members could hear him speak. The ship was like a floating city with people living and working in every section. Some areas had families with children, while others were filled with soldiers and weapons. The captain began to speak in a clear, strong voice that carried across the bridge and through the ship. His words were simple but important. Everyone knew that this was the beginning of something big. The ship had been built in the outer solar system, far from Earth, where no one could see the construction. Workers had spent years welding metal plates and installing the massive engines. The project was so secret that even most government officials did not know about. Hansal remembered the day he had first seen the ship. It had been like looking at a metal mountain floating in space. The hull was covered with sensors and weapons that stuck out like spikes. The ship looked dangerous and powerful even when it was not moving. The crew had trained for 2 years to learn how to operate the massive vessel. Every person had to know their job perfectly because mistakes could kill thousands of people. The ship was so complex that it took hundreds of people just to keep the engines running. As Hansal gave orders to prepare for departure, the ship began to come alive. The engines started with a low rumble that grew louder and louder. The lights on the bridge got brighter and all the screens showed green status lights. The massive ship was ready to leave the solar system. Wu Bin called out from his station that the fusion drives were at full power. The engines were so powerful that they bent space around the ship. The metal hull creaked and groaned as enormous forces pushed against it, but the ship was built to handle the stress. Jin announced that their course was set for the Proxima Centauri system. The journey would take them farther from Earth than any human had ever traveled. They would be completely alone in the empty space between stars with only their ship to protect them. The ship began to move slowly at first, but getting faster every second. The massive bulk of the Titan Edge pushed through space like a metal whale swimming through an ocean of stars. The crew watched their home solar system get smaller and smaller behind them. Hansal did not know that their ship was creating waves in space itself. The massive engines and the huge size of the ship were causing ripples that spread out in all directions. These ripples moved faster than light and carried news of the ship to anyone who knew how to detect them. Far away in other star systems, alien civilizations felt the ripples from the human ship. Their sensors picked up the massive energy signature of something huge moving through space. The aliens had never seen anything like this before, and they wondered what kind of beings could build such a massive vessel. A vegan Empire was the first to detect the approaching ship. Their advanced technology could read the energy patterns from light. Years away, Emperor Kylon sat in his crystal palace on the planet Vega Prime when the news reached him. His skin changed from blue to red as he realized what the readings meant. The Emperor called his war council together immediately. The alien leaders gathered in the Great Hall where holographic displays showed the path of the human ship. The vessel was heading straight toward their territory, and its size suggested either incredible power or desperate aggression. On the Titan Edge, the crew worked at their stations unaware that they were being watched. Han Solo stood on the bridge and looked out at the stars. He felt proud of what humanity had accomplished, but also worried about what they might find in the darkness between worlds. The ship's artificial intelligence, called Ghost, began to detect strange readings on the long-range sensors. The patterns were unlike anything in human databases, and they seemed to be coming from the direction they were traveling. Ghost reported the findings to the bridge crew, but could not explain what the readings mean. So Jin checked all the weapon systems and found them ready for battle. The ship carried enough firepower to fight an entire fleet of enemy vessels. The weapons were powered by the same fusion technology that ran the engines, and they could fire continuously for hours without stopping. The crew did not know that they were about to make history. The massive ship that had been built for war was going to become the bridge between two civilizations. The journey that started as a military mission would end up changing the entire galaxy. As the Titan Edge moved deeper into space, Han Solo felt a strange mixture of excitement and fear. They were pioneers exploring the unknown, but they were also soldiers ready for war. The ship around them was both a symbol of human achievement and a weapon of incredible destruction. The stars ahead seemed to twinkle with new meaning as the great ship carried its crew toward their destiny. The universe was about to become a much more interesting place, and humanity was ready to take its place among the stars. 3 days had passed since the Titan Edge left Earth behind. The massive ship moved through the cold darkness of space like a metal mountain floating between the stars. Captain Han Solo had not slept well during those 3 days because something felt wrong. The ship was too quiet and the crew was too nervous. Communications Officer Yuna sat at her station on the bridge. Her eyes were red from staring at screens for hours. She had been listening to the empty silence of space when something changed. The speakers on her station began to make soft beeping sounds that followed a strange pattern. Yuna called out to Captain Han Solo in an excited voice. She had never heard anything like these sounds before. The beeping was not random noise from space. It was organized and mathematical, like someone was trying to send a message. The sounds came in groups of numbers that repeated over and over. Han Solo walked quickly to Yuna's station and listened to the strange beeping. His heart began to beat faster as he realized what this meant. Someone else was out there in the darkness, and they were trying to talk to the human ship. This was the moment that would change everything. The captain pressed the alarm button and red lights began flashing all over the bridge. The crew members stopped what they were doing and looked at their captain with worried faces. Han Solo's voice echoed through the ship as he called all senior officers to the war room. The war room was a large circular chamber in the center of the ship where the most important decisions were made. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps and ship status reports. A big holographic table in the middle could display anything the crew needed to see. Commander Sojin arrived first, followed by Engineer Wu Bin and Navigation Officer Haijin. Intelligence Officer Jae-min came last, carrying a tablet computer filled with data about the strange signals. The officers sat around the table while Yuna played the recordings of the mysterious beeping. Jae-min stood up and pointed at the holographic display that showed the signal patterns. The beeping sounds were actually complex mathematical sequences that started simple and got more complicated. Each group of beeps was like a test to see if the humans were smart enough to understand. The intelligence officer explained that someone was probing their ship to find out if the crew was intelligent. The signals were like a conversation where one side asks questions and waits for answers. The aliens were testing the humans to see how they would respond, and Saul felt a chill run down his spine as he realized they were being watched by something unknown. The massive warship that was supposed to protect humanity had attracted the attention of beings with technology advanced enough to detect them across the vast emptiness of space. Meanwhile, Far away on the vegan flagship Stellar Crown, Admiral Zara stood in her command center studying the readings from the human ship. Her skin was a deep blue color that showed she was thinking hard about a difficult problem. The alien ship was beautiful and organic, looking like a living creature made of crystal and light. Zara had 6 limbs and skin that could change colors to show her emotions. Her people had been traveling between the stars for thousands of years and had met many different species, but they had never seen anything like the human vessel. The vegan ships were grown rather than built using technology that was part machine and part living organism. The vessels could heal themselves when damaged and adapt to new situations. The aliens lived in harmony with their ships in a way that humans could not imagine. Admiral Zara ordered her science officers to analyze the strange energy patterns coming from the human ship. The vessel seemed to be powered by controlled fusion reactions that created enormous amounts of energy. The ship was like a small, artificial star moving through space. The vegan scientists were puzzled by the human ship design. It was massive and heavily armored, like it was built for war rather than exploration. The weapon systems were crude but powerful enough to destroy entire fleets. The humans appeared to be a violent species that trusted only in force. Dr. Sung-ho worked in the science labs deep inside the Titan Edge, trying to understand what kind of beings were sending the signals. He had studied alien life for years but had never expected to encounter real extraterrestrial intelligence. The signals suggested minds that thought in ways completely different from humans. The xenobiologist and his team worked day and night to decode the mathematical messages. They discovered that the signals contained multiple layers of meaning, like a language that used numbers instead of words. The complexity suggested intelligence far beyond anything humans had achieved. Back on the bridge, Yuna continued to monitor the alien signals, which were getting stronger and more complex. The beings sending the messages seemed to be learning about human responses and adapting their communications accordingly. It was like watching two minds trying to understand each other across the void. Hansal gathered his senior staff again to discuss how to respond to the alien signals. Some officers wanted to send peaceful mathematical messages, while others thought they should prepare for battle. The captain had to make a decision that could determine the fate of both species. Commander Sojin argued that they should keep their weapons ready because the aliens might be hostile. The massive ship had been built to fight, and the crew was trained for war. If the aliens attacked, the humans would be ready to defend themselves. Engineer Wu Bin disagreed and said they should try to communicate peacefully. The aliens had not attacked yet and might be as curious about humans as humans were about them. The engineer thought that showing aggression might start a war that nobody wanted. Navigation Officer Haijin suggested that they should continue toward their destination while trying to communicate. The ship was still far from alien territory, and they had time to learn more about the beings sending the signals. Dr. Sung-ho reported that his team had made progress in understanding the alien mathematics. The signals seemed to be based on the same universal constants that govern physics throughout the universe. This suggested that peaceful communication might be possible. The debate continued for hours while the alien signals grew stronger. The beings out there were clearly intelligent and technologically advanced, but their intentions remained a mystery. The crew of the Titan Edge faced the most important decision in human history. Hansal finally made his choice. The humans would respond to the alien signals with their own mathematical messages while keeping their weapons ready for any trouble. They would try to show that humanity was intelligent and peaceful, but also strong enough to defend itself. Yuna began transmitting human mathematical sequences back toward the source of the alien signals. The messages included basic mathematical concepts, scientific formulas, and even samples of human music and art. The crew hoped that these signals would show the aliens that humans were more than just warriors. The response from the aliens came quickly, and the signals suddenly became much more complex. It was clear that the beings out there were excited to discover that the humans were intelligent. The mathematical conversations between the two species began to flow back and forth like a dance of minds across the darkness. As the Titan Edge continued its journey toward the unknown, the crew realized they were no longer alone in the universe. The massive warship had become the first bridge between humanity and an alien civilization. The future of both species now depended on whether they could learn to understand each other. The first meeting between humans and aliens happened in the empty space between Mars and Jupiter. Captain Hansal stood on the bridge of the Titan Edge, watching the most amazing sight in human history. 12 alien ships appeared out of nowhere. Like ghosts becoming solid in the darkness of space, the alien vessels were nothing like the human warship. They looked like living creatures made of crystal and light. Each ship was the size of a small city, and they moved through space with the grace of swimming dolphins. The ships seemed to bend and twist as they traveled, as if they were a live navigation officer. Hyjin gasped as she watched the beautiful alien ships arrange themselves in a perfect formation in front of the massive human vessel. The ships pulsed with colors that shifted from blue to green to purple, like rainbow lights dancing across their surfaces. The alien ships were so different from the Titan Edge that they seemed to come from another universe. The human warship was all straight lines and hard angles, covered in armor and weapons. It looked like a metal fortress floating in space, ready for war. Admiral Zara stood in the command center of her flagship, watching the enormous human vessel through her ship's living sensors. The metal ship was bigger than anything in vegan history, and it radiated power like a sleeping giant. The human vessel looked dangerous and primitive at the same time. The vegan ships were grown from living materials that responded to their crew's thoughts and emotions. The vessels could heal themselves when damaged and adapt to new situations. They were extensions of their crew's minds and bodies, connected by biological networks that humans could not understand. Admiral Zara's skin changed to a soft yellow color as she prepared to send the first message to the unknown beings inside the metal ship. She had met many alien species during her long career, but none had announced their presence with such a massive vessel. The first communication between the two species was a mathematical greeting that crossed the space between the fleets. Admiral Zara transmitted universal constants and star coordinates to show that her people came in peace. The message was simple, but it carried the hopes of an entire civilization. On the Titan Edge, Captain Hansal received the alien message and felt his heart racing. This was really happening. Humanity was meeting another intelligent species for the first time in history. The moment that scientists had dreamed about for centuries was finally here. The humans responded with their own message that included mathematical formulas, samples of human music, and artistic patterns. The crew hoped that these signals would show the aliens that humanity was more than just warriors. The message traveled across space, carrying the voice of an entire planet. Chief Medical Officer Minsu worked frantically in the medical bay, preparing quarantine protocols for potential alien contact. No one knew what diseases the aliens might carry or how human biology might affect them. The medical team had to be ready for anything. Security Chief Dongwu positioned armed guards throughout the ship and checked all weapon systems. The massive warship was designed for battle, and the crew was trained to fight. The security chief wanted to be ready if the aliens turned out to be hostile. The alien response came quickly, and it was filled with complex patterns that seemed to pulse with life. The vegan message included biological data about their ships and crews, as well as artistic expressions that showed their peaceful intentions. Engineer Wu Bin studied the alien data and made an amazing discovery. The alien ships were not just vehicles, they were living creatures that had been grown rather than built. The vessels operated on principles that human science had only dreamed about. The aliens had mastered biotechnology in ways that seemed impossible to human minds. Their ships were ecosystems that could adapt and evolve. The crews lived in harmony with their vessels in a relationship that was part symbiosis and part friendship. On the vegan flagship, Admiral Zara studied the human ship with growing amazement. The metal vessel was crude by vegan standards, but it represented engineering skills that were impressive. The humans had built their ship using brute force and determination. The vegan crews were tall, graceful beings with 6 limbs and skin that changed colors to show their emotions. They had evolved in harmony with their environment, and their technology reflected this natural balance. Their ships were extensions of their bodies and minds. The aliens could not understand how the humans could live inside such a lifeless metal container. The human ship seemed like a prison to beings who were used to living vessels that responded to their needs and emotions. Admiral Zara decided to risk direct communication with the human ship. She transmitted a request for a meeting between representatives of both species. The message was simple, but it carried enormous importance for the future of both civilizations. Captain Hansal received the alien request and called his senior officers together. The aliens wanted to meet face to face, which was both exciting and terrifying. The crew had trained for this moment, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality. The meeting would take place in a neutral zone between the two fleets where representatives from both species could meet safely. The humans would have to leave their ship and enter the unknown environment of alien. Space Commander Sojin volunteered to lead the human delegation along with linguist Dr. Yoonji and cultural specialist Professor Junho. The three officers would represent all of humanity in the most important meeting in history. The aliens prepared their own delegation led by diplomat Vera, whose skin shifted through beautiful patterns of blue and green. The alien diplomat was experienced in first contact situations but had never encountered a species like the humans. Both sides worked to create a safe meeting place where the two species could interact without danger. The neutral zone was a transparent habitat filled with atmosphere that both species could breathe. As the time for the meeting approached, both fleets watched nervously. The humans checked their weapons while the aliens prepared their living ships for any emergency. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. The meeting place was constructed in the space between the two fleets like a crystal bubble floating in the darkness. Representatives from both species would enter this small space and try to understand each other. Captain Hansal watched as Commander Sojin and her team prepared to leave the safety of their ship. The three humans put on environmental suits and checked their equipment. They were about to make history, but they were also walking into the unknown. Admiral Zara selected her best diplomats and cultural experts to represent the vegan empire. The alien delegation included specialists in xenobiology and communication who had studied many different species. The moment of first contact was approaching, and both sides felt the weight of history. The decisions made in the next few hours would determine whether the two species would become friends or enemies. The massive human warship and the beautiful alien vessels waited in the darkness, while their crews prepared for the most important meeting in the history of both civilizations. The universe was about to become a much more complicated place. The first meeting between humans and aliens took place inside a transparent bubble floating in the empty space between the two fleets. Commander Sojin led the human delegation wearing a bulky environmental suit that made her look like a metal robot. Dr. Yoonji and Professor Junho followed behind her carrying recording equipment and translation devices. The alien delegation was led by diplomat Vera, who moved with fluid grace through the artificial atmosphere. Her skin shifted from deep blue to bright green as she approached the humans. The color changes were part of how her people communicated, showing emotions and ideas that words could not express. Dr. Yoonji watched in amazement as the alien diplomat's skin displayed complex patterns of color that seemed to pulse with meaning. The human linguist had studied every known language but had never encountered a species that communicated through color changes. Diplomat Vera was equally fascinated by the strange beings in their metal suits. The humans looked like mechanical creatures trapped inside artificial shells. The alien could not understand how any living being could survive cut off from the natural world. The two species spent hours trying to establish basic communication. Using simple mathematical concepts and pointing at objects, Professor Junho recorded everything while Dr. Yoonji worked to create a translation system that could handle the alien color language. The breakthrough came when diplomat Vera realized that the humans were not machines but living beings trapped inside metal suits. The alien diplomat's skin flashed with surprise and concern as she understood that the humans could not survive without their artificial environment. Commander Sojin tried to explain that humans had evolved on a planet with different atmospheric conditions and needed protection to survive in space. The alien delegation found this concept difficult to understand because their people had always lived in harmony with their environment. The cultural exchange revealed fundamental differences in how each species viewed existence. The humans had conquered their environment through technology and engineering, building massive structures that dominated space. The aliens had evolved symbiotically with their technology, growing ships and tools that were alive and responsive. Diplomat Vera explained that vegan civilization was based on living systems that grew and adapted over time. Their ships were not built, but grown from seed organisms that developed into complex vessels. The crews lived inside these ships like organs inside a body. The humans were shocked to learn that the beautiful alien vessels were actually living creatures. The concept of biological starships was beyond anything human science had imagined. The alien ships could heal themselves, adapt to new situations, and even reproduce. Commander Sojin tried to explain human civilization to the alien delegation. She described cities made of metal and glass where millions of people lived in artificial environments. The humans had mastered engineering and manufacturing to create tools and weapons. The aliens were puzzled by human behavior. They observed the rigid hierarchies, the separation from nature, and the apparent addiction to artificial environments. Diplomat Vera could not understand why humans would choose to live inside lifeless metal containers. The cultural gap seemed to grow wider as both sides learned more about each other. The humans saw the aliens as impossibly advanced beings who had achieved perfect harmony with their technology. The aliens saw the humans as primitive creatures who had enslaved themselves to dead machines. Ryunji made progress in understanding the alien color language, but the emotional concepts were difficult to translate. The alien skin patterns could express complex feelings and ideas that had no equivalent in human language. Professor Junho documented the alien social structure and discovered that the vegan empire was not really an empire at all, but a loose confederation of living ships that traveled between the stars. The aliens had no permanent cities or planets, but lived their entire lives aboard their vessel companions. The meeting continued for many hours as both sides struggled to understand each other. The humans explained their history of war and conquest, while the aliens described their peaceful expansion across the galaxy. The differences seemed impossible to bridge. Back on the Titan Edge, Captain Hansall received regular reports from the meeting. He was amazed by what he learned about the alien civilization, but also worried about the cultural misunderstandings that were developing. The alien delegation returned to their flagship with disturbing news about the human species. Admiral Zara listened to Diplomat Vera report with growing concern. The humans seemed to be prisoners of their own technology, unable to exist without mechanical life support. The aliens had encountered many species during their travels, but never one that had so completely separated itself from the natural world. The human ship was a metal fortress that showed no signs of life or growth. Admiral Zara's skin flashed with worried patterns as she realized that the humans might be a threat to the natural order. The massive warship represented a way of thinking that was completely alien to vegan philosophy. On the human side, Security Chief Dongwu expressed his concerns about allowing aliens aboard the Titan Edge. The massive warship contained humanity's most advanced technology and weapon systems. The aliens might be conducting reconnaissance for a future attack. The cultural exchange was creating more problems than it solved. Both sides were learning about each other, but the differences seemed to make cooperation impossible. The humans and aliens were like two different species trying to understand each other across an impossible gulf. Commander Sojin reported that the aliens seemed friendly, but their technology was so advanced that they might see humans as primitive savages. The alien ships could apparently grow and adapt in ways that made human engineering look crude. The tension increased when the aliens requested a tour of the human warship. The vegan delegation wanted to see how the humans lived and worked inside their metal vessel. The request seemed innocent, but it made the human crew nervous. Captain Hansall faced a difficult decision. The aliens had shown their ships freely, but the Titan Edge was a military vessel filled with weapons and classified technology. Allowing aliens aboard could compromise human security. The meeting ended with both sides agreeing to continue communications, but the cultural barriers seemed insurmountable. The humans and aliens were too different to truly understand each other. The massive warship that had brought them together might also drive them apart. As the delegations returned to their respective ships, both sides wondered if peaceful cooperation was possible. The universe had become a more complex place, and the future of both civilizations hung in the balance. The first contact that had begun with such hope was turning into a source of misunderstanding and suspicion. The differences between the two species seemed to grow larger with each passing hour. The fragile peace between humans and aliens was shattered when the long-range sensors detected something terrifying approaching from the center of the galaxy. Captain Hansal stood on the bridge of the Titan Edge, watching the sensor displays with growing horror. The readings showed thousands of objects moving toward both human and alien. Space Admiral Zara appeared on the main communication screen, her skin flashing urgent patterns of red and orange that Dr. Yunji had learned meant extreme danger. The alien diplomat spoke through the translation system that the human linguist had developed over the past few days. The aliens called them the Devourer Swarm, and they were the most dangerous threat the galaxy had ever known. Admiral Zara explained that these mechanical beings had been consuming star systems for millions of years, leaving nothing but empty space behind them. The Devourer Swarm was not a natural species, but an ancient artificial intelligence that had been created by a civilization that no longer existed. The mechanical beings had turned on their creators and consumed them before spreading across the galaxy like a plague. Admiral Zara's skin showed deep purple colors that meant sadness and fear as she explained what had happened to other civilizations that had encountered the swarm. The Centauri system had been completely destroyed 600 years ago, with all its planets stripped bare and turned into raw materials. The mechanical beings did not communicate or negotiate, they simply consumed everything they encountered. The swarm turned living planets into factory ships that built more mechanical creatures. The process continued until entire star systems were converted into swarm vessels. Captain Hansal felt his blood turn cold as he realized the scale of the threat. The Devourer Swarm was heading toward both human and alien space, and neither species had the power to stop them alone. The mechanical beings had consumed hundreds of civilizations over the millennia. The revelation changed everything about the relationship between humans and aliens. The cultural differences that had seemed so important suddenly became meaningless when faced with extinction. Both species would have to work together or face complete annihilation. Commander Sojin studied the tactical data that the aliens had shared about the Devourer Swarm. The mechanical beings fought with geometric precision using swarm tactics that overwhelmed individual ships. The creatures showed no mercy and took no prisoners. The aliens had been running from the Devourer Swarm for generations, moving their fleets ahead of the advancing mechanical tide. The vegan empire had lost entire worlds to the swarm, and millions of their people had been consumed. Engineer Wu Bin worked frantically with alien technicians to understand how the two species could combine their technologies. The human weapons were powerful but crude, while the alien bioships were adaptable but fragile. The breakthrough came when the engineers realized that human firepower and alien adaptability could create something neither species could achieve alone. The massive weapons on the Titan Edge could be powered by alien bioenergy systems, creating unprecedented destructive force. The alien bioships could grow and adapt in real time, responding to changing battle conditions. The human weapons were designed to destroy targets with overwhelming force. The combination of the two technologies could create a fighting force capable of standing against the swarm. Admiral Zara and Captain Hansal worked together to plan the defense of both their civilizations. The massive human warship would serve as the command center for a combined fleet of human and alien vessels. The cultural barriers that had divided them were forgotten in the face of mutual survival. The Titan Edge began to change as alien biotechnology was integrated with human engineering. The ship hull started to grow and adapt, developing new sections that pulsed with organic life. The vessel was becoming something new, a hybrid of human determination and alien wisdom. The crew of the Titan Edge found themselves working alongside alien technicians whose skin changed colors to show their emotions. The humans learned to read the alien color patterns while the aliens adapted to human verbal communication. Dr. Sungho worked with alien biologists to understand how the living ship systems functioned. The human xenobiologist was amazed by the complexity of the alien technology, but also excited by the possibilities it offered. The Devourer Swarm advanced scouts reached the outer edges of the solar system and began scanning for resources. The mechanical beings showed no interest in the life forms they encountered, only in the raw materials they could harvest. The first contact between the swarm and human outposts was devastating. The mechanical creatures attacked without warning, consuming entire mining stations and converting them into new swarm vessels. The humans fought back, but their weapons were not designed to fight this kind of enemy emergency. Signals reached the Titan Edge from the outer solar system reporting that the Devourer swarm had begun its assault. The mechanical beings were moving faster than expected and would reach the inner planets. Within days, Captain Hansal realized that the combined fleet would have to fight the swarm in the asteroid belt where the human mining stations could provide cover. The battle would determine the fate of both species and possibly the entire galaxy. The alien bioships began to merge with human vessels, creating hybrid craft that combined the best of both technologies. The process was painful for the living ships, but necessary for survival. The vessels writhed and pulsed as they adapted to human weapon systems. Commander Sojin coordinated the integration of human and alien weapon systems. The massive guns on the Titan Edge were connected to alien bioenergy networks that could provide unprecedented power. The ship was becoming a living weapon. The cultural exchange that had begun with misunderstanding was now becoming a desperate alliance for survival. The humans and aliens were learning to work together because failure meant extinction for both species. As the Devourer swarm approached the solar system, the combined human-alien fleet prepared for the most important battle in galactic history. The massive warship that had triggered first contact was now the last hope for organic life in the galaxy. The mechanical threat was unlike anything either species had faced before. The Devourer swarm did not seek conquest or territory, but only the complete consumption of all organic matter. The battle ahead would determine whether life or death ruled the stars. The final battle for the galaxy began in the asteroid belt, where human mining stations had become the first targets of the Devourer swarm. The mechanical creatures moved through space like a plague of metal locusts, consuming everything in their path and converting it into new swarm vessels. Captain Hansal stood on the bridge of the Titan Edge, which had been transformed into something beyond human imagination. The ship now pulsed with organic life as alien biotechnology merged with human engineering. The vessel had become a living weapon that responded to the thoughts and emotions of its crew. Admiral Zara worked alongside the human captain from a shared command center where both species coordinated their desperate defense. The alien Admiral's skin showed determined patterns of gold and silver as she directed the combined fleet against the mechanical T. The Devourer swarm emerged from the darkness like a nightmare made real. Thousands of geometric ships moved in perfect formation, their surfaces reflecting the light of distant stars. The mechanical beings had no emotion, no mercy, and no purpose except consumption. The first clash between the combined fleet and the swarm was unlike anything in recorded history. Human weapons, powered by alien bioenergy, carved through swarm vessels, while living ships adapted to enemy tactics in real time. The space around the asteroid belt became a battlefield of light and destruction. Communications Officer Yuna coordinated between human and alien forces who had learned to fight as one. The language barriers that had seemed impossible to bridge were forgotten in the heat of battle. Humans and aliens worked together with desperate efficiency. The swarm vessels were perfectly designed killing machines that absorbed damage and adapted to new threats. The mechanical creatures learned from each encounter, becoming more dangerous with every passing moment. But the alliance of organic species presented challenges that the swarm had never faced. Engineer Wubin worked frantically to maintain the hybrid systems that kept the Titan Edge functioning. The fusion of human and alien technology created amazing possibilities, but also new problems. The living ship systems were fighting against the mechanical invasion in ways that defied understanding. The battle raged across the asteroid belt as mining stations exploded and reformed into swarm vessels. The mechanical beings showed no interest in the human workers. They consumed only in the raw materials they could harvest. The cold efficiency of the swarm was terrifying to witness. Commander Sojin directed the massive weapons of the Titan Edge against the largest swarm vessels. The ship guns were now powered by alien bioenergy that made them more powerful than ever before the blasts of energy that erupted from the human warship could vaporize entire enemy formations. The Devourer swarm responded to the unexpected resistance by adapting its tactics. The mechanical beings had encountered thousands of species over the millennia, but never one that combined biological and technological elements so effectively. Admiral Zara's living ship twisted and flowed through the battle like a creature of pure energy. The alien vessel could heal its wounds in real time and adapt to new threats faster than any mechanical system. The bioship was fighting for its life and the lives of its crew. The turning point came when Dr. Sungho made a crucial discovery about the swarm nature. The mechanical beings were controlled by a central hive mind that coordinated their actions across vast distances. The human xenobiologist realized that disrupting this central control could cripple the entire swarm. Engineer Wu Bin studied the quantum signatures of the swarm communication system and found a weakness. The mechanical beings used a specific frequency to coordinate their attacks. The frequency was similar to the resonance patterns of human quantum drives. The Titan Edge began to emit a counter frequency that disrupted the swarm coordination. The mechanical beings suddenly found themselves acting as individuals rather than a unified force. The loss of central control caused chaos in the swarm formations. The combined fleet pressed their advantage as the swarm vessels began to fight each other in confusion. The mechanical beings were designed to work together and could not function effectively when isolated. The Organic Alliance had found the key to victory. Captain Hansol ordered the Titan Edge to push deeper into the swarm formation, targeting the central command vessels. The massive hybrid warship carved through enemy lines like a sword of light and living metal. The ship crew worked together with alien precision. The final assault on the swarm central node required incredible sacrifice. Many ships were destroyed as they fought through the mechanical defenses. The crews of both species died together, defending their right to exist in a universe that seemed determined to destroy them. Admiral Zara's bioship was badly damaged as it protected the Titan Edge from swarm counterattacks. The alien vessel was bleeding energy and its living systems were failing, but the ship continued to fight, driven by the will of its crew and the desperate need for survival. The climactic moment came when the Titan Edge reached the heart of the swarm formation. The central command node was a massive geometric structure that pulsed with mechanical intelligence. The ship that had started as a human warship was now humanity. Last Hope engineer Wu Bin activated the quantum resonance weapon that he had developed with alien help. The energy beam that erupted from the Titan Edge was unlike anything ever created. It combined human fusion technology with alien bioenergy in a blast that could crack planets. The swarm central node exploded in a cascade of destruction that rippled across the entire mechanical formation. The Devourer swarm that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years was finally defeated by the combined efforts of two species that had learned to work together. The victory came at a terrible cost. Thousands of ships had been destroyed and entire populations had been evacuated from threatened worlds. The asteroid belt was now a graveyard of metal and crystal, where the greatest battle in galactic history had been fought. Captain Hansol and Admiral Zara stood together on the bridge of the damaged Titan Edge, watching the remains of the swarm fleet drift through space like mechanical ghosts. The threat that had driven them together was finally gone, but the alliance they had forged would last forever. The massive warship that had triggered first contact became the symbol of galactic unity. The vessel was refitted as a combined command ship, where humans and aliens worked side by side to protect their civilizations. The Titan Edge was no longer just a weapon, but a bridge between worlds. In the aftermath of the battle, both species signed the first Interstellar Alliance Treaty. The humans offered their engineering skills and determination, while the aliens shared their biotechnology and wisdom. The combination of their abilities created possibilities that neither could achieve alone. The galaxy entered a new age of cooperation as humans and aliens learned to work together. The differences that had once seemed insurmountable became strengths that complemented each other. The universe became a safer place because two species had chosen unity over conflict. Captain Hansol remained in command of the Titan Edge. As it patrolled the galaxy watching for new threats, the ship that had been built for war became a guardian of peace. The crew was now mixed human and alien, working together to protect all. Organic life. The story of first contact that began with suspicion and fear had evolved into the foundation of an interstellar civilization. The massive warship that had brought them together proved that even the greatest differences could be overcome when beings chose to work together. The future belonged to both species and many others who would join them in the years to come. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to reach for the stars.